Next speaker, Daniel Gagnon, someone else we've known for many years, Daniel has been very involved in the DA community right from the beginning. He is a CDAC. He is a certified instructor as well, and one of only 4 DA fellows in the world. Daniel, due to his outstanding contributions to DA over the years. Daniel is a unique individual in that he has very thorough understanding of PMI and the traditional project and program portfolio management, as well as a deep understanding of all things Agile. So he has enterprise coaching experience in major financial institutions. He's an enterprise lean Agile thought and practice leaders with over 20 years of project and portfolio program management experience, extensive experience as a corporate trainer, instructor, and a certifying agent for both Scaled Agile Framework and Disciplined Agile Delivery. So Daniel is going to talk to us about Beyond Agile Applied Anti-Fragility. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you, Mark. And good everyone. I think that's the format we're using, right? Since we're straddling several time zones. So folks, just let me know when you can see my, you can see the screen properly?
You can.
All right, it's good. So welcome to, this is actually our talk. I do have a co-speaker who is going to present himself very briefly in a moment. Basically, what we'd like to talk about today is what we feel lies beyond agility. And I like the image here because sometimes agility feels like a ladder which has been mounted on an immense tripod and you know, made to seem like it can fly, but it really can't. So there are definite limits to agility, and we're going to look at what lies beyond. We believe that is basically applied anti-fragility. And Doug, if you'd like to just introduce yourself briefly before I move on to the next slide.
Yeah, hello, I'm Doug Knesek. I'm the Director of Agile Development and Coaching for a company called Flexion, based in Madison, Wisconsin.
And we'll get to the story of why we're co-speaking and how we stumbled onto one another's work briefly. The first point, and this will be something familiar to this audience, the main thing we're talking about today is that Agile has not really come anywhere close to its promise. And we have 2 very blatant examples of this on screen here. There's a Scrum book out there that's promising 400% productivity increases. This is observably false in most cases. It is limited to the outliers of case studies for a number of reasons, and we know a lot of them from a value stream mapping, for example, limiting your improvements to just the development when you have 18 months of ideation in front. It doesn't really make much sense. Same thing goes for stuff, we have claims from SAFE here, 20 to 50% increase in productivity. We're basing a lot of this on the Rifer study we found, but this study actually looking at 3,000 projects across the world, 1,500 of them were waterfall, 1,500 of them were claiming to be agile in one way, shape, or form. The productivity increases are closer to 12% on average worldwide over the years when using an agile approach. And when you actually scaled, the productivity increases were actually closer to 5%. So this is not the multiples and the incredible increases in productivity that was promised us. We were promised jetpacks, yet we still don't have them, basically. So this brought us to one of the things that we stumbled upon in 2012 and read and reread. And I'll let you, Doug.
Sure. So, the question was why? I mean, both Daniel and I have been trying to coach Agile teams for at least a decade, and we're both running into the same problem. So the question was, why is it that Agile frameworks and Agile transformations are difficult? And at about the same time, we stumbled on Nicholas Nassim Taleb's work. He had a whole set of books, one of them being Antifragile. And what made the book most interesting isn't so much the anti-fragility part, at least not at the beginning. It was the fragility part where Taleb talks about what makes systems fragile, right? And Agile frameworks and Agile transformations tend to be complicated human machines. And complicated human machines are fragile to any sort of error, right? If 1 or 2 components under the hood of your car aren't working, your whole engine's not going to start. So first, by understanding fragility, we were able to then enhance our understanding of how to get beyond that type of fragile system. And Daniel will talk more about what anti-fragile means here next.
If you need one mental image to understand anti-fragility, folks, this is it. Your friendly neighborhood dandelion. A dandelion gone to seed is one of Earth's most anti-fragile constructs. There is nothing you can do to a dandelion in seed that it will not enjoy, in the sense that it's you know, kicking it, mowing it, having the dog run through it, picking it up and blowing on it. No matter what you do to this thing, it enjoys it because it is propagating the species. The disruption, it is absolutely and utterly thriving on the disruption. And you can see in the image here the multiple parachutes that are leaving from this particular individual here. These are all options flying off. Some will wind up in your gutter, you know, in the gutter of your roof, may actually manage to grow there. Others will be all over your lawn. But the point is, it's very simple. This is way beyond just being robust or resilient. You know, in the IT sphere, for example, we talk a lot about resilience of systems. Well, resilience is merely bouncing back to a prior state. This is way beyond that. And it's certainly not just the, you know, robustness of a 1957 Land Rover somewhere in Zimbabwe either, that's still being used, still running. That's fine, but it'll break down one day. This is a completely concept that is completely beyond that. And basically what we're saying is it is the, you know, as much as the, you know, the goal of Agile and the manifesto was, you know, delivering value faster and so on, this is about surviving and thriving in an era of VUCA and disruption. It's way beyond just resilience or robustness. So in order to bring this back to our initial slide, and you know how Agile has been underperforming and so on, we decided to basically try and make sense of our space and align some common models. So this is the model we came up with. So backdrop of the Fibonacci sequence. The main components you can see is the colors of Frederick Laloux's Reinventing Organizations evolutionary sort of string, going from, you know, very red command and control all the way to teal, and teal being basically very few actually full out teal organizations in the world, but it's the ultimate aim of agility and ultimately of anti-fragility. The other thing we have underlying here is you can see the gray lettering: simple, chaos, complicated, complex. So basically we were able to map David Snowden's Cynefin to the Laloux stages to give a sense of how these models really are have elements of commonality. However, Doug is going to discuss one thing that we've actually added to this, and that's in the small blue lettering.
Yeah, one thing you'll notice from the dandelion picture before, we talked about all the seeds being options, and that's a common thread through all of Taleb's work, is that options really are the mechanism of anti-fragility. So one of the things we notice is that different organizations, different people, different teams go through different stages in thinking about options. They often start off being option blind, which is there at the top center. I don't know if you have your pointer there, Dan, but option blind is really where you begin. It's when you don't really consider options much. It's sort of a, you know, plan the work and work the plan sort of scenario. As you go around, you become more option aware. You know that options benefit you, but you haven't mastered how to make them happen. That takes us into more of an option enabling stage, where we really do set things up. You know, we create the conditions for options to become easily discovered. This is sort of where most of Agile is. Agile is sort of an option enabling strategy. Beyond option enabling is option seeking. And that's really where you really begin pursuing options explicitly. It becomes part of your routine. And then finally is option generating. And that's when not only do you seek options, but when you find options, discover options as either successful or a failure, you spread them, you share them throughout your organization. You become a font of options for your whole organization. Option seeking is something we're about to jump into on the next slide to talk a little bit more how it fits in with DA. when I was talking with Daniel early when we began meeting, we were talking about optionality and antifragility. At some point in the conversation, I don't know exactly when, he says, well, when it comes to the scope of helping organizations to become more agile, Disciplined Agile Toolkit is an option-seeking strategy. It defines an option-seeking strategy. And what I noticed is not only does it define options, as everyone here has already talked about during this presentation, but it helps provide a pathway through those options, right? They're not just a list of, menu items so you can choose from. It actually describes a pathway from, through a series of options to what might be considered to be the most optimal options you can choose, and how to get from point A to point B.
And that really brings us also, the title of this talk is Applied Antifragility. Well, let's look at our model again. And you'll recognize the symbols that DA uses for the various components of the organization. And this bouncing red barrier here symbolizes where most organizations, companies are stuck right now. They're stuck in basically 20th century Agile. And what we're seeing here is we're applying this model no longer to, saying that the whole organization is either red, amber, green, or teal, but basically, and this goes back to a blog that Scott put out a couple of years ago saying your organization is probably a rainbow. Well, it is. And the important thing here is that DA will actually allow us to interact and to work with the various components, the various organizational functions. And what we need to do is this is no longer just, IT bringing everyone by the hand and imposing a prescriptive framework and saying the whole company is going agile. No, this is working with these components. This is working with these organizational stakeholders together collaboratively so that we can expose their options and help them understand their options in improving their own level of anti-fragility ultimately. So what basically happens, and this is just an animation to give you a sense, this is all fictitious, but by having each component, through simple rules and experimentation and teaming and open collaboration and transparency, work on being the best they can be, ultimately the whole organization will move that invisible electrical fence that's keeping the organization back further along to teal and true anti-fragile option generating states, basically. And that can really brings us to our conclusion is that an organization's degree of anti-fragility is really determined by how well it can use experimentation and simple rules to generate and exercise this option space across the entire ecosystem, and not just in IT as it's been for years. And with that,
over the last 5 years or so, I would argue that whenever I encounter, my elevator pitch to executives when they ask me the question about agility and they're struggling to understand how it works and why it works, I've converged on this. The answer is, agility and anti-fragility both improve your options, right? They create options at all scales, at all boundaries within the organization. And they understand that, right? Most people understand that, we've learned for decades that, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And that's a great way to reduce exposure. But we also teach them that the more options you have, like the dandelion, the more likely it is that the marketplace will swerve into your options unexpectedly. Amazon pretty much thrives on that concept, right? They have thousands of products. Most of them fail. Almost all of them fail, But every now and then, the market swerves into one of those dandelion seeds, and they benefit. I think
that's it from us.
All right. Thank you, Doug and Dan.